I'd like to thank Dana for helping me with this investigation as I go into the new model arena. Those models I put on the previous windscreen wiper diagram, I said I suspect that you're all familiar with them. Some of these models you might not be so familiar with. Now, and that's because these models are still developing. They're a social enterprise type vehicle. So you might have come across some of these phrases and you might know some of the detail behind them. Now, I'm not stood here for one moment saying, you know, all those other in that other windscreen wiper diagram, you know, they're all that. They're defunct. This is the new place for us in terms of delivering service. That's not the case. Each local highway authority, each public sector client is different, and it has different needs. And through the range of models, the local authorities should be selecting the one that will best deliver or most likely deliver the outcomes that it requires. So let's have a wee bit of a look at some of the detail of some of these models. So first of all, the TECL exempt company is a wholly owned public sector company. This company is set up on the premise that it will not have to tender for public sector works from its commissioning authority. You'll see in one of the boxes there it talks about multiple authority collaboration. And this allows a number of different authorities to get together, to form the TECL company, to sit on the same board and deliver those services across a region. Of course, it's got its downsides, and its big downside for me is that it can't have any private sector involvement, influencing or directing service. I can't have that private sector involvement on the board, on the TECL exemption company board. Also one of the downsides, but it shouldn't stop you from doing it, because that will be the case in all of these three models, is that case law is still emerging. So every single week I'm reading some new legal article that tells me that the boundaries of the TECL exemption company have just been stretched again, and that we can now trade up to 12% of our total turnover and so on and so forth. So the rules are still being made in connection with this particular model. I'm sure you've heard of employee-led mutuals, something that Francis Maude's been pushing. And what is it? He's just recently said that up to 1 million public sector staff will be in employee-led mutuals over the next 4 or 5 years. Now, does that mean that employee-led mutuals are coming to our sector, to our industry? It might do. There's opportunity for them. The employee-led mutual is an organisation which, through its name, gives it away, is owned or managed by the employees. Now, these companies, and John Lewis is the shining example, produce some really good statistics. In general terms, they have higher levels of profitability. They have lower levels of absenteeism. And they've got lower levels of staff turnover. So there's a lot of good to be said about the employee-led mutuals. And we know that we've already got some examples in the public sector. And we know that the coalition is pushing and wants to continue to push this and some of the other social enterprise models. So keep your eye on this particular model, because you might see it come into our industry. And then of those three models, finally, we've got the Section 95 company. Again, it's a wholly owned public sector company, but this time it's set up to trade. So it's set up to get out there and mix it with the private sector and public sector and trade within its area of expertise. So it's got these great freedoms to trade around the Section 95 company. So it's just extending some of the earlier powers that we had in some of the other acts within local government. And it's formalised that for local government. It needs to have this very strong commercial focus, obviously. Otherwise, it'll win nothing. If it's out there competing with the private sector, it's got to have a really strong commercial focus, which might be part of its downside as well, because sometimes commercial decisions might not be in the best political interest of a local authority. Even this model itself, whilst it's sort of reasonably well developed, and we see it in places within the UK and we see it in our sector, there's still case law that's still emerging in connection with Section 95 company as well. It's got to tender for all works, so it's not like the TECL exemption, where it doesn't have to tender and you can save on all of those procurement costs. Here, it's just like a private sector organisation. It's got to tender for all council work and it's got to tender for all private sector work. So in terms of the models that, clients will be thinking, we should consider, there are a number of steps, I think, that, clients need to go through. They need to go through each of these steps and consider each one quite robustly, whether or not it's a TECL exempt company or another social enterprise vehicle, or whether or not it's an outsourcing or a joint venture or whatever. You've got to have in place a really robust business case that can demonstrate why you've gone down that route. Because without it, someone, and more likely your politicians, will pull you back and make you demonstrate and prove that it's the best model that is most likely to deliver the outcomes required of your organisation. Saying procure sensibly. We heard Graham say earlier, sharp pencils. Well, in terms of sharp pencils, absolutely. That's just the environment that we're in now. Money's tight. But clients are going to be taking a real good, strong look at sustainability. So when you sharpen your pencil, make sure that the price that you put forward will cover the services described within your tender documentation, because that will be looked at in some detail during sustainability. And I encourage clients to make sure that they do pay sufficient attention to that as we move through into this new era of money being a lot tighter in our sector. We should incentivise performance, of course, in perhaps some of the traditional ways in which we've done in the past, but there needs to be incentivisation mechanisms built into our contracts. Talked about collaboration with others, and you can do that through a TECL exempt company, or you can do that through joint procurement with neighbouring authorities. The issue being is that please consider it if you are going out to procure, if you're a client organisation. And then finally, I've mentioned it already there, is that robustly manage the arrangements. Don't go to all that effort and all that money of putting together a great contract, a great specification, great performance criteria, a great performance measurement system, and then when you get the data, it's a bit uncomfortable, and it's going to be really tough. Discussions I've got to have. Have those tough discussions, because that's why you put all that effort into that contract and specification. So I can't encourage clients enough to manage these deals as they should do, using my money as a taxpayer. So do all of those things well, and you'll get what you deserve. Don't do any one of those things well, and you'll get what you deserve. So finally, it's just for me to say that clients, please do have a strong commercial focus and continue to develop that commercial focus within your businesses. Make sure that you're applying the right standards to the services that you're requesting. I know that perhaps there are some of you sat in here thinking, God, my reducing budgets and the bloody programme of works and my backlog of, and I'll mention it, of potholes or of remedial works that we need to do, we're never going to be able to deliver that. I'd rather try and juggle elephants. Well, we have heard today already, and indeed you guys all voted and said, you know what, we think we can do something with these reducing budgets. We think we can actually still deliver a standard of service which will be acceptable. So that really brings me to the end of my presentation, just to say that clients, all of you who are here in this room, know which model of those that are put up there, and there are others, but know which model will best deliver the outcomes that you require. Thank you.